Israel announces a new phase of its so-called, in quotes, peace plan for the Palestinian region, with the reopening of the Rafah crossing, but already creating some disagreements between Israel and Egypt. Meanwhile, the 5-hour meeting in which the Americans presented a peace proposal to Russia ended with no conclusions, with NATO stating that it is preparing for war not only against the Russians, but also against the Chinese, North Koreans, and Iran. We also need to talk about Germany, which is installing its Arrow missile defense shield, one of the most advanced systems against intercontinental ballistic missiles, including Russian ones, many of which have nuclear capability. And we need to talk, man, about the bombings in Latin America that, according to President Trump himself, are going to begin very soon. He has already presented a proposal to Nicolas Maduro, with American media rumors claiming that Maduro is planning to flee to Qatar. It's worth remembering that Trump and Lula had a phone call in which the two exchanged compliments, but there was one main point: the initiative to combat organized crime, not only in Latin America, but especially in Brazil. Haddad himself said that some information has already been shared with U.S. intelligence. To wrap up this part, we also have to mention some controversial measures adopted by the Trump administration after an Afghan national killed 2 members of the United States National Guard. Trump stated that people from Somalia are trash, that Somalia stinks, and that Somali immigrants contribute absolutely nothing to the United States, extending his criticism to other countries as well. So what does all of this really mean? If you want to understand more about these topics, and also geography, geopolitics, current events, politics, controversies, and all you need to stay updated, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, share this video, because I, Professor Robert, really count on your support. Alright? Well, guys, let's jump into the video. As I said in the introduction, we are indeed entering the beginning of a new phase of the peace plan, agreed between the United States, some Arab countries, Islamic nations, and Israel for the Gaza Strip, involving demilitarization of the territory, reconstruction, and more. During the process, it was established that some residents who wished to leave Gaza would have that opportunity. Those who chose to stay would, at first, face a military siege and full control by Israel to de-radicalize, according to them, the Gaza Strip, and remove individuals aligned with Hamas. And now, we are entering that phase. Israel announced that it will reopen the Rafah crossing in the coming days. This is an important step, showing progress in negotiations. However, there are already disagreements. Most Palestinians do not agree with the U.S. and Israel's proposal to form a military alliance to de-radicalize Gaza. Hamas says it is willing to give up armed struggle, but only when there is a real guarantee of creating a Palestinian state, which is unlikely to happen. Figures like Netanyahu do not show solid support for the creation of that Palestinian state. Another point is that the Rafah crossing is not only important for evacuation, but also for the entry of military aid, and this has not been approved yet. Egypt says it agrees with the reopening, and that mediation will be carried out between the Egyptians and a European Union delegation. But Egypt says the crossing must work both ways. As Israel allows people to leave toward Egypt, likely with US and EU financial support, Israel must also allow greater humanitarian aid into Gaza. So it's an important development, but there are still clear disagreements. We also had the meeting between Putin, Russian leaders such as Lavrov, and others, including Trump's son-in-law, Steve Bannon-Volkov, heavily criticized by Ukrainians. The meeting lasted 5 hours. Leaked excerpts showed only conversations praising Moscow, beautiful city, etc., but nothing about the main content. Here's what we know. There was no progress in the peace process. Ukraine is no closer to an agreement. Talks were productive but reached no consensus. The Russians said they heard American concerns, but nothing moved forward. Putin presented a 28-point peace proposal, modified by Europeans and Ukrainians. The points were not disclosed, but involve the Donbass region, the size of the Ukrainian army, whether Ukraine can or cannot join NATO. The slow pace benefits the Russians, who are advancing towards Sloviansk and Kramatorsk after taking Pokrovsk. Trump said he will no longer fund Ukraine. The US now sells weapons to Europeans, and they can pass them on to whoever they choose. Marco Rubio stated that American taxpayer money should stay inside the United States. Today, there was a summit of NATO foreign ministers. Since 1999, the US had never missed one. In 2025, Rubio did not attend without explanation, showing NATO's weakening. A NATO admiral suggested the possibility of a preemptive strike against Russia. Putin replied, "We don't want to attack Europe, but if you come to war, we are ready and we will win." Mark Rutte, NATO, avoided commenting, joking instead. Rutte also said that Moscow works closely with China, Iran, and North Korea to destabilize the West, promising $1 billion per month to sustain Ukraine, an amount insufficient for a war against Russia. Without U.S. funding, Ukraine weakens, and the U.S. is trying to push Zelensky into negotiating. NATO treats these countries as a unified bloc. In practice, there are agreements, but not such deep coordination. A few points. Iran and North Korea are heavily sanctioned. Naturally, they move closer together. Russia and North Korea have a military pact. Russia and Iran trade weapons and equipment. China has billions invested in Venezuela, complicating any U.S. attack on the country. Germany announced a revolution in its air defense system. It has IRIS-T, short range, 15 kilometers, U.S. Patriot, 150 kilometers. But intercontinental ballistic missiles like the Russian Sarmat reach 20,000 km/h, and none of these systems guarantees full protection. That is why Germany and Israel closed a €3 billion agreement for the Arrow 3, now part of the triad with IRIS-T and Patriot. Let's now talk about the Arrow 3, a defense system designed to intercept long-range, high-altitude missiles. We're talking about 100-kilometer altitude and a range of up to 2,400 kilometers. When dealing with ballistic missiles, the best chance to intercept them is before they leave orbit. A ballistic missile is launched, exits the atmosphere, and when it re-enters, it can deploy countermeasures, fake missiles and decoys, to confuse air defense systems. At this stage, interception is practically impossible. That's why the most advanced systems try to neutralize the missile before it leaves the atmosphere or even before launch. This is the concept behind the U.S. Golden Dome, a $1 trillion project criticized by China, Russia, and North Korea. Why? Because, in practice, it is a network of satellites monitoring everything these countries do, with sensors directly pointed at their territories. The justification is defense, but who can guarantee that? Obviously, China and Russia aren't comfortable with it. The Arrow 3 system follows this same logic. It uses the hit-to-kill concept. The interceptor missile doesn't explode. It directly collides with the enemy missile, destroying it on impact. This reduces the risks of explosions, shrapnel, and collateral damage in civilian areas. The system was designed to neutralize missiles before re-entry, meaning in mid-trajectory, often in space. It is especially aimed at Russian threats, such as the Sarmat, for example. Since 2022, Germany has been working on what it calls a historic turning point, a complete realignment of German and European security policy. The Arrow, developed by Israel and the US, will have 3 radar systems for early warning trajectory detection, a combat management system, and mobile interceptor launchers. Unlike cruise missiles, which are guided by AI, ballistic missiles have far less maneuvering capability. Because of trajectory, thrust, and fuel patterns, it's possible to predict the impact point and attempt interception before the missile leaves the atmosphere. But hold on, this doesn't mean Germany is ready. The system is only expected to become fully operational in 2030. It's extremely expensive, and it may still generate social costs in the future. The ambition, according to Frederick M., is to build the most powerful army in Europe. Trump once again stated that bombings will take place in Latin America, and not only in Venezuela. According to him, any country that poses a threat to the United States could be targeted. American media reports that Trump may have given Maduro an ultimatum until Friday, closing airspace and negotiating a potential escape route. The new twist is the rumor that Maduro may have been invited not by Russia this time, but by Qatar, which could host him. If it's true or not, we'll have to wait and see. Trump also claimed that Latin American traffickers have caused over 200,000 deaths in the United States, and that the numbers are decreasing because the U.S. is going on the offensive. He also said that land-based attacks are easier than maritime ones because they know the routes and know where everyone lives. The idea, interrupt the flow of narcotics. If we think about priorities, the white powder mainly comes from Colombia, Peru, Bolivia, and Ecuador is rising under Daniel Noboa, becoming the fourth most relevant country today. Venezuela seems to be the first target. Colombia, due to recent provocations against Trump, could be the second. But there's a contradiction. The main cause of overdose is fentanyl, which comes from Mexico, Canada. Would there be operations against Canada? If the goal is to combat narcotics, Venezuela shouldn't be the top priority. Yesterday, there was another phone call between President Trump and Brazil's President Lula, about 40 minutes, and both praised the conversation. According to Trump, the topics discussed were sanctions, tariffs, trade, organized crime, and he said he likes Lula a lot. However, Brazil's foreign ministry emphasized the central topic was the fight against organized crime. Lula told Trump that Brazil will cooperate in combating drug trafficking. It will help locate Brazilian criminals operating in the U.S. It will try to prevent the U.S. from needing to use military force, prioritizing intelligence operations. I partially agree. Intelligence is essential to financially suffocate these groups. But in territories fully dominated, true parallel states, it's difficult to regain control without some level of force. If Brazil acts with maintained sovereignty, with U.S. intelligence support, fine. The issue is how it will be done. According to Haddad, the U.S. Embassy requested access to documents to enable this cooperation. Crime exploits loopholes such as fintechs, betting platforms, money laundering, and illegal asset transfers. The U.S. wants to help shut these doors. In exchange, Trump may even concede on trade matters if Brazil cooperates in fighting organized crime throughout Latin America. After the attack committed by an Afghan national in 2021 against members of the National Guard, Trump created a list of 19 countries considered Third World, using an outdated term. He then restricted immigration and now wants to expel migrants of certain nationalities. The most controversial case, Somalia. Trump said, "Somalia is trash. The country stinks. Somali immigrants contribute nothing." But why Somalia? There is a large Somali community in Minnesota, and an unproven allegation suggested that social program funds were ending up in Al-Shabaab, a group linked to Al-Qaeda. The city government responded saying, "Trump's claims are false. Somalis contribute a lot. Criminalizing an entire community is wrong." Another country verbally attacked, Kenya. Trump called a Kenyan congresswoman trash and extended the insult to the entire community. He is attempting to create mass deportation policies, but the Supreme Court will decide whether this is constitutional. The immigration situation in the U.S. is extremely chaotic right now, guys. All right, everyone? Did you get the main developments? If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and comment below what you think about all these developments.